Hello, this is Ray Watkins, and this is my critical assignment for Kinesiology 552. And we will be discussing the psychological factors in medical wellness. So we have a specific target population that we're working with, and this demographic here is a group of people who what we'll call C-suite executives, or these are going to be, CFOs, CEOs, COOs, or basically people in professions of upper management or even ownership. And there's a particular age range that we find these people at, and it's something where they're not really entry level and they're very young, but they're not quite retired. So research has shown that they're around 40 to 65, so what we can call, middle-aged people there. There's definitely some rationale behind why, I chose this target population. Some research has shown that, especially this up-to-date 2019 study, has shown that there's definitely a connection between how people act and their lifestyle behaviors in the middle age and how it affects their ability to live independently. The people in this target population definitely have the opportunity to improve their quality of life after they finish working. And so it's something where this is really a great rationale for this study here. And then also some research in this 2001 study has shown that this population has a lot of interconnected trends between both mental factors and health factors. So this middle-aged population has definitely shown correlations of how mental factors can affect health and the other way around. So throughout this project, there's definitely some relevant research that I want to point out that helped contribute to the information that you're getting here. First is going to be this Japanese study that was in 2017 by Awasaki and company there. And what they did is they were able to find a relationship between, certain practical components and strategies and an increase in physical activity in the workplace. I chose this because it really makes sense when we're dealing with using the workplace as a situation where we can increase someone's physical activity. The people in this group, this middle-aged group, these executives here definitely spend a good quantity of time in their workplace. And this study has shown that there are certain strategies that can be done there to help increase physical activity. Next, to our 2000 study here by King et al. And this one here talks about looking at specific barriers to exercise and what are some of the popular barriers that these people see in this age group here. And it definitely discusses the two major ones that they found were lack of time, particularly giving the caregiving duties, and then also stating that there's a lack of energy for exercise. So we can see that time and energy definitely play a part into some perceived barriers for this group of executives here. And continuing with some more relevant research, this 2011 study here by Quandary and company here investigated how exercise motivation differs throughout the lifespan. This is definitely important because we are working with a specific age group. It's something where this study showed that there's specific strategies that are appropriate for one age that may not be appropriate for others. So we're not going to approach a 17-year-old to increase physical activity the same as we would a 65-year-old. They definitely have different cares, needs, and wants, and there should be different strategies. So that's why we chose this study here. And then lastly, Fontier here in this 2016 study definitely went into one particular strategy of using personal care physicians or primary care physicians to help increase physical activity. I definitely think that's important because that plays a part into my professional field here. And what this study did is looked into the specifics between the terminology that that primary care physician would use, especially the word exercise versus physical activity. So it's something where they found that people responded better to the word physical activity because they found it less intimidating, more inviting than the word exercise, which is usually has a connotation of, blood, sweat, and tears and those sort of things there, which can, maybe turn some, really decondition people off to exercise. So next, what I wanted to do was look at certain environmental factors that play a part into how this specific group here, this target population, can engage in physical activity. These could be positive and they could be negative as well. First one to discuss is going to be the physical environment. What that accounts for is their physical environment conducive to having walking or jogging paths? Are there parks or sidewalks? Is it a safe place to go outside in the physical environment to have some physical activity? Most of the people in this executive category live in some well-to-do areas, so there definitely has been some civic planning that allows for these sort of things there, which maybe on the flip side, someone else who may not be in such an affluent area may not have this, physical environmental factor, and it could be a negative to them. So that definitely plays a part in the physical activity. Next, what we have here is going to be the social environment. So this is going to curtail or entail how this group can work socially to increase physical activity. Are there certain walking or exercise groups? Do they have access to sports leagues? One important piece that somewhat we discussed earlier is going to be workplace incentives. Usually, these corporations that they work for have a corporate wellness program. So there's something where they do have certain incentives in place through their workplace to increase physical activity, to make sure that they're taking account of their health and those factors that play into that. So, and then some more environmental factors that definitely need to be discussed are going to be the cultural environment. This is really kind of deals with these executives' core beliefs. It does have a religious context to it. Studies have shown, especially this study in 2001 by Levin, that there's a religious connection to healthy behaviors, and most predominant religions do have something to say about maintaining physical health. It could also go into outside of religion, but just geographical cultural areas where certain countries have just a higher culture of physical activity, where some are more sedentary. So that's definitely a factor that plays in there. And then lastly, it's going to be the family environment. Maybe these executives grew up in a family where the parents really didn't model physical activity, and so it wasn't a family tradition. It can be the other way around. Research has shown, as such as this 2009 study, that adults and parents who model physical activity tend to have children who are more physically active. Kind of makes sense, but it's something where it's been statistically shown. Now I wanted to get to some potential barriers here. There's three areas I wanted to focus on: some mental barriers, perceived barriers, and objective barriers, or physical barriers. In this group here that found and through research that the mental barriers, the main ones are anxiety and perfectionism. They're under a lot of stress, which creates anxiety. This anxiety has definitely been stated to be a barrier to physical activity and caring about health. It definitely correlates to negative health outcomes there. These highly driven executives definitely tend to be perfectionists, and if they cannot perfect a certain thing at a certain time, maybe it's something that they see that it can't be done. Definitely some perceived barriers that are going on in the head here. Like we stated before, this group may sense that they have a lack of time, or the cost that they put into it definitely doesn't. They don't get the return. They're kind of thinking, putting the business profit and loss sort of concept onto physical activity. The cost of time and money they may feel doesn't, garner the return that they should see. And then also there's some objective barriers, which could be, lack of equipment, or unpleasant weather or climate and things like that. I do believe that these executives living in Southern California and an affluent area usually have some discretionary income to overcome these barriers. So some key factors that I found that really show this connection here, like we talked before, are going to be those perceived barriers of lack of time and those mental barriers there. A concept of low self-efficacy. You can define self-efficacy as the combination of the confidence someone has in completing a task and their self-expectations of will they. That's been shown to be a large contributor to, sticking with the physical activity plan. And it's also been shown to be a mediator through the Iwasaki study that it factors into how someone sets their goals. So if they have low self-efficacy, they tend to not set real positive goals. And that goal setting is definitely something that can increase physical activity and promote health. Lastly, is the decreased personal investment. These executives here may feel that they put a low importance on physical activity. Their priority of physical activity, they put it at the kind of at the bottom of the list. They can measure it through amount of time spent, how much money they spend, towards it. But it's something where that's definitely a key factor in the connection between this population and the increase of physical activity here. So some strategies that can go about improving these factors here, or, when you're talking about personal barriers here, perceived personal barriers, you can talk about time management skills, understanding how much time is actually needed to achieve health benefits. Sometimes when someone sees that, hey, 150 minutes of physical activity is all a week is all I can, really need to start seeing some improvements, it kind of changes things there. Us as exercise professionals can help raise the self-efficacy of this population through positive feedback, informative feedback, helping goal setting and program creation there. All concepts of what's been stated through the trans theoretical model there. And then lastly, there's the intersection of certain prominent authorities. Research has shown that primary care physicians and even religious leaders can help build that personal investment. They can speak to those core values of this population and help provide them with some motivation they need. And then lastly, here there's that personal investment theory that has been studied in this 2000 or 1988 study, that has shown that personal incentives, maybe workplace incentives, things like that, can help motivate people for physical activity and health benefits. So, as an exercise professional myself, I like to use as my mission statement one of my favorite verses here from 1 Corinthians 10:31. It's so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. In our position, we can display Christ's love and compassion, and we ultimately have a ultimate purpose for our occupation. It's not to make money or it's not to garner fame, but it's to actually display Christ's love through caring for people, showing compassion and empathy, and helping people, work through situations that they definitely need help. And to finish this up here, I definitely learned a lot from this class here, and I want to thank you, Dr. Garrett, for this. I definitely learned that there's a huge mental aspect to physical activity, and I love seeing that direct connection between the psychological and the physiological. It can be really science-based, but what goes on in the mind as well definitely can play a part into people's level of health and fitness. And for sure, it's given me some real-life strategies to help in my current job and to use with my further staff training here, where we can look at the psychological side of exercise adherence and compliance and goal setting and so forth there, to really build an efficient and a program that is productive and that can definitely help people. So I definitely learned a lot, both for myself but then also for my career as well. I want to thank you a lot for watching this presentation, and thank you very much.